See, when you receive a file, could you give us some insight on the first things that you like to do?
All right. So if the borrower is not a high touch borrower, I always reply to the initial email introducing myself because even this small step builds rapport and it lets the borrowers know that I'm here. I also call the borrower when I receive the initial AWC. And this is where I really build the rapport because I get to know them, set the tone for the rest of the transaction. Just let them know that I'm not a robot, that I'm a real person who is behind a phone that they can get a hold of and who cares. My big thing with the borrowers on the first conversation is to let them know that it seems like we have a lot of time. Like, let's say they have 30 days till closing, but we don't. I mean, you have to count in your weekends. You have to count on the fact that if we turn a document in that, the underwriter might have additional questions and then it goes back into queue. So my goal with them is, I tell them, I say all the time, you guys, I'm sorry, my child's making food in the background. I always tell them, I just said, you get me your things in within like 24 to 36 hours. I'll do my part. Let's crank this out because I want them to have that peace of mind of a clear to close. And then we can wait for the appraisal, whatever documents we need to come in, any third party, HOI, just those simple items, title. And they love it because of most of the borrowers, they're nervous, they're afraid they're not going to get the house of their dreams. So that is where I find that they take it very serious.
I love that you're building rapport right off the bat, and it ultimately it builds trust so that if there is a bump in the road, it's easier to overcome that. Would you say that you contact your borrowers more via a phone call, email, or both the same?
I like to speak to my borrowers more by phone rather than leaving it just to email, like to an email conversation. I feel that so many things can be interpreted differently in an email, like the tone and even the next steps can be perceived, differently. So, a lot of times they'll have questions and I want them to get their answers immediately instead of going back and forth with email. So I definitely speak with them more on the phone. And for example, today I called a borrower. I could have emailed them and say, hey, why do you have a gap of employment? And then wait for him to possibly see the email right away and then respond. But instead I thought, no, I'm going to call him. I'm going to ask him these questions, write it down, drop an LOE, send it off to him, just a date and sign. And then voila, we're done. Most things can be done with the borrower on the phone. And especially if you get them in front of their computer, you can knock out so many conditions just in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, you make some really good points about making sure that your borrowers aren't misinterpreting things.
Right.
Yeah, and then when you get them on the phone, you're able to make those immediate actions, answer their questions right away, and really just get their buy-in on the next steps, and hopefully maybe even get information right then and there immediately.
Right. And you're still building that rapport, that connection, which is huge, and, for example, you can talk to them about personal things as well. Let's say they say, well, I'm really busy. My child's birthday is coming up. You're in your next conversation, you can say, well, how was your child's birthday? Just build that closeness up to them. Make them feel secure with you and their transaction.
I love that. You're continuing to build that rapport and you're just obtaining those little pieces of nuggets that you can use in the next phone call and continue to even build that rapport. All right. So how long do you typically wait if you don't hear back from a borrower?
Oh, my word. So for most conditions, if I don't hear from the borrower within 24 hours of them telling me that they'll get that condition back to me, I'll give them a holler. For HOI updates, I usually give out 48 hours. And for bank statements, if I know that they have access to that, I'll wait between 24, 36 hours on that. Okay. But if I know that they can just jump on their portal, their bank portal, and pull up a statement for me, or let's get a transaction history done, those are the ones I really try to knock out within 24 to 36 hours. Just stalk them. Okay. Just stalk them. I'm kidding.
Like that. Okay. So what if the borrower is unresponsive?
Oh, if the borrower is unresponsive, well, that's a red flag. To me, it is. So I'll call them in the morning, depending on, their time zone. I'll try to get them before work. And if I can't, then I'll call again when I know that they're off work in the afternoon or at night and try to get a hold of them there as well. And if that doesn't help, then I'll loop in the LO to get their help with reaching out.
Awesome. And with that, let's shift gears and talk about the LO. We all know LOs are all about those quick CTCs. How do you get the LO to do their part in getting a quick CTC?
Well, I always start off with good communication and build that rapport with the LO I work with. If I've worked with the LO before, I will check in with them according to their style. Sometimes I don't need as much relationship building if I already know the LO, like Adam, Kyle, Jimmy, Jared, all those awesome guys. But I still find ways, even though I know them, to even build a stronger rapport. If I'm working with a new LO, I always make the intro call, talk about expectations, build rapport, learn about their communication and origination styles, and find out how they've prepped the borrower with the rest of the transaction and provide me with additional information if needed. Let's see here. With all LOs I work with, I'll always ask for as much information as possible regarding the borrower and their file. I want to know if there's any potential roadblocks. For example, is the borrower going on vacation? Is the LO going on vacation? Let's say the borrower is in the middle or is separated at the time from his wife. That could be roadblocks. You just never know. Just personal items. Anything that I need to know that could hinder or create an issue during this transaction.
I really like that and how you involve the LOs in your process and that you prep them in case there is a bump in the road. So one more question for you is, how do you stay on top of everything else like third-party orders?
Honey, I don't think I always do, but okay. Well, I try to stay on top of my critical dates by using a spreadsheet. It's pretty detailed, but anything in red on that spreadsheet means it is not done. So that's kind of like alert, the spreadsheet is everything. I also print all of my AWCs out. I know it's crazy and it's old school, but it works for me. Just because to me, seeing is believing that it's there. And I am seriously scared half to death I'm going to get a virus on my computer and knock everything out, because that would seriously happen to me. Everybody on my pod knows it would. I'm accident prone. So, so that's what I do. Just that Excel sheet helps me really keep track while the third-party docs required. Appraisals, HOI is title in, what the ETA is, all that fun stuff. ICD, of course, huge one. Did I send it out? Yes. Has it been signed? No. It'll be in red if it wasn't signed. It'll be in red if it hasn't been sent out. And then as soon as I get it, review it and upload them as soon as possible.
Well, it does sound like you keep your finger on the pulse of the third-party orders and signatures, so that they're not holding up the closings. All right. Well, thank you so much, Christie, for going over your process. From what I gather, you start off with strong communication with your borrowers and the LOs, and you set the tone for the rest of the transaction. You follow up promptly and consistently, and you have a solid system in place for your third-party orders and those ICD signatures. All of these are great ways to get fast CTCs, and I appreciate you sharing them with us. Now I would like to open the floor to a Q&A. Who would like to start us off with our first question for Christie? Deanne.
I'll go, Christie, because I know you. So one thing that I think Christie is really good at, and I don't think she mentioned this, but she is good at getting like third-party orders that are not responsive Christy. You are so good at like just consistently following up and getting those. And to me, I have high anxiety when I reach out to someone multiple times and like bother them. And so I am just wondering from my perspective, like, how do you get over that? Or how do you like, what is your mindset for that? Because I have such a hard time like harassing people, so to speak, you know, like just trying to get the documents that we need. And I know that's something that you're actually great at. So what do you do? Like, where's your mindset on that?
My mindset is if I don't get it, we don't close.
Yeah.
And my mindset is if I was the borrower, would I want my processor to hound, harass, or stalk whoever it is to get my information so I can close on my dream home? That's how I look at it as. And I honestly, as crazy as it is, I have a fear of what I told you guys earlier, but I do not have a fear of talking to anybody. I'll just call them up. I'll be friendly and nice. And I'll even joke about, I'm like, I know I've called you 80 million times today, but it is so important. If we do not get this document today, we will not close on time. And I really need you. And I appreciate all your help. I always just kind of fluff them too, you know, just a little bit. Like, I need you. Everybody wants to feel needed, right? I'll say, I need you. And that usually is a key phrase that gets me through the door. So if you ever want to do a third way, like a 3-way call, I'll show you how to do it. I mean, that comes naturally to me just because I used to have to sell, you know, high-end cosmetic dentistry. So I had to be able to come up with different phrases and how to speak to people. And that's also, I'll just throw this in here as well, you guys, if you haven't tried this, and Jessica might even be a great topic for one of the meetings. It's called the DISC program, the DISC, where there should be questions where you ask your borrower or even anybody. Once you do it several times, you will be able to pick up on a personality like that within 15 seconds. And once you pick up on that personality, you know how to speak to them properly in order to get what you need and what you want. So I did that for about 20 years, and that is amazing.
Oh, I really like that. Like a topic on how to speak to someone else, like pick up on those cues and.
Well, for example, I was told by a loan officer the other day, he says, when you call this borrower, her boyfriend, oh my gosh, I guess he was swearing at the LO and everything, just being like this crazy tyrant, you know, bossy, controlling. And so I thought, all right, good to know. He's a dominant personality. And so when I called them last night, I let him be the expert, even though he's not. And then when he was done talking, I answered his questions. And at the end, he said to me, his exact words were, Christie, thank you so much for listening to me and answering my questions directly. He goes, that's exactly what we needed in order to sign this initial closing disclosure, because at the top it says final. And I said to him, I said, you can't e-sign, you know, you can't do that. You have to, when everything in your state, when everything is final, you will have your signature on there. You have to wet sign. And so, you know, just made him feel better. But with that type of personality, let them be the expert, even though you know they're not. You know, and if they're verbally abusing you, then just get off the phone. But, you know, other than that, they just want to be heard and they want to, you know, have their ego stroked. So just stroke your ego.
That is really great advice, Christy. When people want to be experts, let them.
Let them be the expert.
It is really hard sometimes to let that go in the moment, but that is some fantastic advice. I love that so much.
Yeah. And then, you know,